Dhamma Jimden, the Shenjavan, Rajaman, Yangavan, Zobes, Rival Shazon, Deman, Devere Shevan, Jidenjam, Given the Halo, Javan, Lana, Mevan, Hada, Melam, Jedu, Sanjay Jimden, the Bejavan, Shajadu, Chalo Judo, and Jazo Shevan, Dhamma Jimden, the Shenjavan, Rajaman, Yangavan, Zobes, and Jerivan, Shazon, Deman, Devere Shevan, Jidenjam, Hello, Joala, Meva, Lada, Melo, Jetum, Sanjay Jumden, Bejawa, Shajan, Dobala, Chasan, Mojo, Jasuch, Damba, Jumden, the Shinja, Vandashamba, Yanda, Sanjay, Shazon, the Mandevare, Javan, Jiden, Jamba, Jivon, Lana, Meva, Lada, Melo, Jetum, Sanjay Jumden, the Bejo, Shaja, Tubala, Chasan, Mojo, Jasuch, Kanze Ganyan, Zo, Jetum, Sajan, Nane Jiden, the Najo, Tezek, Vajo, Namda Gunga Jodo, Susan, Yishija, the Savior, Taban Jiden, some Nana, Gombo Chuni, Change on them, Batiman, Davish, Sandon, Wajo, the Regina Ziva, Suma, Jenya, Jena, Gombo Tuji, Jeden, Batam, Jajan, Bedam, Solomon, the Jensha Lacha, the Taban, the Jatra, giving yes. Jido, the Lamacho, was Shenyu, Lacha, the Trainer, Lava Tala, the Shinga, Gideon Maya Charles, the Wachia, Mrs. Gava, Ranga Sinde, also the Tenasa, the Karmata Rim, Jumasa, Children, Melon, the Church of the Solomon Diatom Jesse, you go out to the Ginger, other Shiva. Siva Solendo and over show
to the teacher, last one won't be
or destroy.
completely perfect.
Perfect in knowledge and good conduct.
Sugata, no supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, completely and fully awakened one, blessed one, the glorious conqueror, subdue from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go forth. To the teacher, the blessed one gone beyond, full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfecting knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, blessed one, the glorious conqueror, subdue from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one gone beyond, full destroyer, completely perfected, fully awakened, perfecting knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, no supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely, fully awakened one, blessed one, the glorious conqueror, subdue from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I prostrate. With pure bodies, born supremely pure, wisdom motion like golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, we know the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior in great compassion, teacher in all understanding, field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to dozens I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality. To the Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realization, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime community and the virtue I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the storm, mirage, flame of a lamp, illusion, drop up to whole bubble, dream, flash of lightning, cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits, meditation means obtaining more seeing. Subdue the faults, and be delivered from emotional suffering of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje Chono Soje Chono Chaju Badu Lande Chasu Nage Cheso Jebe Sonam Je Rola Pinche Sanje Sanje Chono Soje Chonam La Chaju Badu Lande Chasu Nage Cheso Jebe Sonam Je Rola Pinche Sanje Chono Soje Chonam La Chaju Badu Lande Chasu Nage Cheso Jebe Sonam Je Rola Pinche Sanje
I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Lama, and Tsongkapha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Lama, and Tsongkapha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Lama, and Tsongkapha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Tamje je mono cha so lon de da sanje chum de de je je ba da je ba ya da ba so de je ba da so de ga je ba je de je ba je ba de ba ma je ba da me no de so je chum de so de je ba de no so no da ge de do ge we za wa no chu me so se ve ra do je so no de de no de shi pe je so mo no je ba chen no je ma do je je ye re mo to no me de ba me de me ba no bro Sheriff City made them a ton of Simjetam Jiji Demba, Chandris about Yep. Pabe Kazana Jiji, when young and they were projected to Shepard, over some Jim. So number of Yanyan, Guijata, Chomich, Kutsumba, the water, Suda, Sumevada number two, but number two, Pumata, come on, the vacation of Damba. The Vana machine, Yonzo don't want to Siva to chew and give a issue of the Vata Majumba. Tadrejava Sanji Jim Lady, Jena, never, young and the Yana, but the Taman. Simjatam Jena Siva Sala Shuba, and the Dana Sanji Jim Lady, which is very Tavision of Tomageva, Otto give a Tomageva, the answer of Sundras and Majeva, Yozo Jawanya, Tabato, Nemba, Dushavan, whatever they told to you, Kevan of the Suzerain. Jundene Jella wasn't mentioned the one lang about the Sobation to draw what you from the Temba Major, what the Temba you would do what you go. Tewashimberg in the Levashuba, too much of charge of everything. Son of Jebeji, you know, what you bend the no one, you bend the what you Congress and General was one about me, Chabame, what这你这些人嘛，做个三年嘛，都给他妈的老长子。So, read 183. The Precious Garland 2 says, the Precious Garland 2 says this clearly in the following. Since the person is a composite of 6 elements, it is no absolute existence. And likewise, since each of the elements is in turn the composite, they too have no absolute existence. So, like from the collection of the trees and the designating a forest as a singular. So a forest is the composite of the many trees, right? So similarly, the self or the person or I is something that is designated independent upon the collections or the assembly of the six constituents. Six constituents. The constituents of the earth element, water element, and the fire element, and wind element, and the space element, and the consciousness, the element of the consciousness. So composite means kind of based on the assembly of these six constituents of the elements, and they conceptualize as one singular, as a person or I. So based on the many trees together, and then conceptualize a forest as a singular entity, right? So, and each of that, again, within the basis of that cell, each of the elements, the space element, without the, without the kind of, the earth element, water element, and the fire element, and wind elements, there is no self, there is no space element independently by itself. So the same you can apply to the wind elements. Without the space, without the wind, without the kind of moisture in the body, without the heat in the body, without the solidity in the body, there is no wind element by itself that exists, right? And then, that goes like so the fire element. So there is no fire element kind of independent from the water and the earth and the wind and space element. So each elements do not independently exist, right? So, the assembly of the six constituents of the element, and then with that base, conceptually designate a cell of the person. So this is like, a forest as a singularity, conceptualized as a single entity, and then a government, a nations, like a nation singularities, right? So this whole conceptualize, such conceptualization, through the conceptualizations, and there's all this entity kind of, given the identity through the conceptualizations, given the identity of each entity. So the entities do not really identify by themselves, or they do not exist in and of itself. So this is again, so there is no this myself as an absolute existence. The point of the first line is to state the reasoning, because the person is designated in dependence on the collection of the six elements. The point of the third line and the fourth line is to state that since it is impossible for something not to consist of parts and the barrier of the parts, the parts and the barrier of the parts, the reference or the referral objects, right? Referral entity or the reference. So which clearly indicates this is not really kind of, the absolute things. It's just creation, through the projections. So the consist of parts, like a forest consists of many trees. A person consists of 5 aggregates, or a person consists of the collections of the 6 constituents of the element. So the barrier of the parts, or the part themselves. So this kind of, the distinctions of these parts and the barrier of the parts is never experienced or witnessed by any sensory perceptions. It's all exists, within the thought, by the thought. Right? Like you don't see a forest as a singular entity and it has parts, or it has the, many trees. It's not really witnessed by your eye consciousness. So it consists of the parts and the barrier parts. Each element is in turn designated in dependence on the collection of the many constituted parts. So as I mentioned earlier, each element do not really remain or kind of exist by themselves. So therefore, they do not exist on the level of absolute reality or by virtue of their own essence. So furthermore, if they are designated in dependence on the collection of their constituted parts, neither the parts nor the barrier of the parts can be the things itself. So there is no self by itself, independent from the aggregates or independent from the collection of the six constituents of element. And there is no each element that do not exist by themselves apart from the other elements. So yet something of the different entity from these cannot be the thing either. So therefore, through the conceptually making a distinctions, the barrier of the parts and the parts is conceptually distincted to separate entity, as not the separations, not by the essentially or right, from the object side. So, in me and my hand as a separate, right, in the face of thought, and that separations is separation of the separation of the me and my hand is due to the conceptualizations, or so it's conceptually distincted as a separate entity. So I think that's why the separation is the separation themselves are is a mere name and mere concept. So beyond that, there is no you and your hand as a two separate entity objectively. So now, insofar as the way, the vast and so on are conceptually presented. So now in the Prasangika school, this is only in the Prasangika schools, a vase, a tree, a table, right? A braid, whatever you say, is so on are conceptually presented. So they are, in that respect, at least exactly similar to a snake imputed on the basis of the rope. Right? A braid as the consist of this eight substance or the four substance. So when it comes to counting the four substance, color, smell, taste, and tactilities. The braid is the consist of the color, smell, taste, tactilities. The consist of the four substance as a braid is the kind of, the braid. So because of that, the braid is never exist, right? By the object of color itself. Braid is not exist by itself from the smell, by taste, and the tactilities. Right? No, consists the four substance as a braid is a totally absence in the color, totally absence in the taste and smell and the tactility. But it exists, right? It exists as consists of the four substance, but depending upon the color to see, kind of smell and the tactility and the taste. So because of the consist of the four substance as a braid is totally empty or absence within the four substance, the color, smell, taste, tactility, and exactly the same, the snake that imputed on the coiled rope. From the coiled rope, there is no snake in the patterns of the color of the coiled rope or the kind of, the shape of the rope. So from the rope and from the color, and there is no snake that exists. Right. So the color of the braid, the color that exists, right? Through the eye consciousness, within the color there is no braid. So the color is merely exists as a reflection, right? Reflections, which is which has caused like conditioned by the space, light, and the form and the eye sense power. Right. So the color that you see through the eye consciousness is just a reflection. It's just like a rainbow, like existence. Right. So in this particular entity has no braid to eat. Right. So then the taste and the smell of the braid, again, exactly the same as the color which exists. Right. So the taste or the smell, it exists when the braid and the nose sense power and contact. So prior to the contact, the taste is not there in the braid, taste is not there in tongue sense power. So from the contact, it just exists as the reflections. So there is no braid. There is no braid again in the taste of the tongue, or tactility, the roughness or softness. So the braid, consists of four substances as a braid is only conceived or imagined by the thought, imputed by the thought. So where the snake is not exist or not found from the coiled rope, is that consists of the four substance as a braid is totally absent in the color, smell, taste, tactilities. So this is where now in Sufra, the way the Ras and so on conceptually presented, there are in respect, in that respect, at least exactly similar to a snake imputed on the basis of the rope. However, between the Ras and so on, the one, right? So on the one hand, the rope snake on the other, the two cases are entirely different when it comes to the whether they exist, whether they are capable of effective functions, and so on. So the way it's not really objectively findable is exactly the same as snake in a coil rope,
and the braid as it consists of four substance, which is totally absent in each substance. So still, in the conventional reality, the snake in the rope and is non-existing. The braid with taste is existence. It is the reality, right? Braid with the smell, braid with the taste, braid with the tactility. It's a reality. So now the both are unfindable within the basis. Is the fact, right? Exactly the same. So now, what is that thing that determining the braid, which is absence in the color, smell, taste, tactility, but it exists with color, smell, taste, and tactility. And the snake is not in the robe and the color of the robe, but at the same time, the snake also not exists with the robe, not exists with the patterns of the color of the robe. So what is determining that? So one is not exist, one is existence. So so this is because there is a clear distinction between the two, and whether their conventions remain essential for everyday transactions, whether the usage of such convention is susceptible to invalidations. So I think this maybe if we kind of go a little bit and try to understand this from the exercising on the other entity, like for a minute. So minute and it exists, and it exists with seconds, because the minute is existing for 60 seconds, right? So that's the conventional reality. So now, if you try to kind of try to pinpoint, is there in the real the minute exists with each seconds, or minute has exists with the first second or the second or the 60th seconds? So the objectively, no minute has found to be existing with the first second, second, third second, fourth second, 20 second, even the 60th seconds. So there is no trace of the minute has been existing. Right? So because of not finding kind of the minute that exists with each seconds throughout the seconds, or before the second has started, or after the second's 60-second. So not during the second, not before the second, not after the second. The minute has never really existed there. Right? But minute is, what makes the existing of the minute is the second. Right? So now, only thing that you can you can be satisfied the minute is existing for 60 seconds is the presumptions. So because presumably you have measured the 60 seconds as a minute. So from that point of view, or from that respect, so minute you can find is existing for 60 seconds. Right. So it's similar here, the braid is although bread is totally absent, and the color of the bread, smell of the bread, taste of the bread, the tactility of the bread, but the bread is existing with color, smell, taste, tactility, because you have presented the bread as a consist of the four substances, right? Because this is what you presented, this is what you projected, this is what you accepted. The bread is the consist of the four substances. Just only that reason. So in this way, the vase is exists conventionally. That is the reality, and the snake in the rope is non-existing. Right. So that everyday transactions remain tenable in this world, presented through the conceptualizations, represents among the conceptualizations, among the commentaries of the words and the meaning of the Madhyamika treatises are unique traditions of the interpreting the noble Nagarjunas and his son by the three masters, Buddhapalita, Shantidevas, and this master, Chandrakirtis. This issues of the how everybody, everyday translations remain possible in the world presented through the conceptions is indeed the most difficult part of the final view of the middle way. So that is the most difficult part, right? So having negating the entity that is totally from the basis, or negating the entity objectively totally, and right, and accepting the entity that exists through conceptualizations. That is the most difficult part. So I think that's kind of, I think at the end, how many, how far you negate the objectivities of the phenomena. So then the, with our everyday way of living, through the interpretations or through the characterizing of the phenomena. Yeah, I think so. Like for example, each person, individual. So when things that appears to our mind, and we have many of those appearance, the object that appears to you, and you don't really you don't have much connection, and you pick selectively one of those appearance is more relevant to you, more objective to you, right? It's more closer to the emotions. So your emotions is what do you call your emotional is the one that manifest or kind of actively manifesting these appearance. So one is more favorable and unfavorable, right? So many of the things that we don't care or we don't really have much feeling towards. Yeah, I think, that's the kind of, and conventional reality means kind of ordinarily, this is the way of ordinarily perceiving things, ordinarily accepting things, agreeing things. So ordinarily agreeing and accepting is not through examining kind of, the objectively, right? Without analyzing, without examining, and we kind of, very ordinarily accept, right? Ordinarily accept what is the seer, seeing, smeller, smelling, right? Cutter and cuttings. So we ordinarily accept as a two separate entity. So when we accept as a two, one is the action, one is the agent, is ordinarily we accept. So without examining, without kind of, objectively, kind of, without any objectivities, without any objectivities. So objectively, if we try to find or some kind of examining on any kind of things, seer and seeing, there is no seeing as an action that is separate from the seer objectively. And objectively, there is no seer as an agent that is a different form act of seeing. So the conventional reality is without any, objectivity, simply kind of, through the conceptualizations. And this is also not superimposing, right? It's not superimposing on the object. Superimposed means, so then, like for example, the aggregates of bodies, feeling, emotions, and the perceptions with that, and I am as a possessor of the all five aggregates. So now if you want to superimpose on the self, and then I would say, oh, that is the independent from the body. That is independent from the emotion. They're independent from the perceptions. So that is the superimposing, right? So having thought of myself with body is not superimposing, and it's not superimpositional, and it is also not the kind of, accepting any objectivity. Right. So with my kind of, with body I am, with feeling I am, with kind of, emotionals I am, with the eye consciousness I am seeing, with nose consciousness I'm smelling. So this kind of more ordinarily the way of perceiving, or ordinary way of conceiving the self of the person, right? There is no superimpositions, and there is no objectivities.
Ordinary people do not superimpose things.
Yeah, ordinarily they don't really superimpose. Yeah. So the philosophically now, when it comes to philosophical, so it's like a normal way of kind of, the way of kind of, the, how's that? Just there's a normal. Everybody says kind of the philosophical or non-philosopher, both. So, oh, I am going, and this is my hand. I taught this, I taught this, I'm talking, I'm going, right? So, philosopher or not philosopher, both. Now, philosopher thinks, oh, so I as a possessor, going is my actions that done by myself. So I am, and my act of going as a two separate. They are like, car and car drivers, and cow and cow's owners. So then the philosophically superimposing on the ordinary perceptions. So ordinary do not really superimpose. And also now here, superimpose means you're apprehending the objectivities, independent, independent natures. You are apprehending it. So now ordinary people also have innate grasping, right? Without, innate grasping, out of habit. So there's strong habituations of tendency to clinging on independent object, right? Tendency to, more more closer, more comfortable with independent nature. So that is the ordinary. We all have equally, philosopher and they are not philosopher. So the philosopher, they assert, right? They don't not just innate, they assert, make assertions that yes, I. So I do that, I think that means I am not the mind, I'm not the body. So I am independent from the body and mind. Right. So because of the I is independently exist, independent from the body and the mind, therefore that I is never dies, right? Never born. So that is permanent. So they're kind of, how say, so they got bruised out by the wrong perceptions. So and talk more and more, right? So and in the reality, this is like that. Objectively, there is no such thing, right? There is no such thing as a forest as a singular. There is no such things as a forest which existing with each tree, but the conventionally, ordinarily, so we impose a forest as a singular, and forest is the consist of many trees. So that is still not superimposition. So the persistent conceptions understood thus. Then, as the precious garland states, nothing whatsoever, not even the mere names, exists on the ultimate level. On the ultimate level, even just the things exist with mere name, and the mere name itself does not truly exist, not ultimate level. On the conventional level too, nothing exists other than what are presented as mere designations to the conventions such as names. So this is why they're saying because of the material things are mere name, the space too is mere name. How can there be matters with no elements? Therefore, mere name too do not exist. So the material, Nagarjuna's chapter 4 analyzes sort of form. So like, for example, this So there's the four elements, right? The four elements, that is the four elements is consumed and experienced by every sentient beings, right? Now, depending on the sentient beings, if the human being, and they have kind of the different way of kind of how's that engaging or experiencing the four elements because of their body structures, their elements, and their so the way human beings seeing things as a color, where human being is smelling and hearing and taste and textures, right? So like animal, human being, we are all kind of experience the four elements. So because of the animal's body and because of the elements that is, what do you call that run by the karmic force of the animals and the emotionals, and animal karmic force runs the elements of the animal body. So through that, and they experience the four elements and differently. So materials is mere name means here. So because of that idea, the elements are the cause, and as a result, for individual is the way what I have experienced the element. So I would say, with my eye, I see the color. So what you experience the four elements through the nose. So I experience the elements as the smell. I experience the with the tongue, the taste. I experience the four elements kind of with my body sense power as a texture. So other than that, right, color, smell, taste, tactilities, and the sound, other than that, I have no idea of the existing of the four elements. Right. So I have access to experience elements is eye, ear, nose, tongue, and the body. Right. So so this is kind of the four elements are the sources of everybody, every sentient beings. Right. So so there is no color, smell, taste, tactility of you apart from the four elements. So four elements that experience or consumed by every sentient beings. And so there is no four elements, right? And that is that exists apart from the color, smell, taste, and the tactilities. So elements are no different from the color, smell, taste, tactility. Color, smell, taste, tactilities are no different from the four elements. So this is like green chili. So when we when we taste, it's very hot, right? And when it gives to the parrots, so parrot doesn't seem to be feel very hot, so they taste like candy. They eat, right? So you see the same thing, with your kind of the structure of the elements, and they have different way of experiencing. So what we experience is the four elements, and the four elements that depend contact with your inner elements, and you experience this differently. So the color, smell, taste, tactilities are no different from the four elements. Four elements are no different from the color, smell, taste, tactility. Right. So, and then it says the four elements, the color, smell, taste, tactilities, which are already being produced, right? Things that are already being produced, is not really being given rise by the elements, right? Because it's already produced. So once the color that is produced, it is not giving rise by the elements. And unborn of color, unborn of taste, kind of smell and tactilities, things that are yet to be born are again not being produced by the element. So you see, first, this is the source and this is the result, right? But if you objectively try to find, the four elements are cause, color, smell, taste is a result. So maybe you think there is the movement, there's a four elements is producing the color, smell, tactilities. Right? So things that already produce, there is no event that you can see that four elements are giving rise to it. And unborn, or things that has not been produced or not yet to be existing, are also not producing by the elements. So in the reality, so every sentient beings, what we experience is the four elements. And because your karmic force, the emotionals have different kind of, different emotionals, different karmic force, that's changing the experience of the four elements differently. So that's why material things are mere names, right? There is no color, smell, tactilities as independent from the elements or being different from the elements. And there is no color, smell, taste, tactilities which are being produced, are not giving rise or originating by the elements. Right? Of course, unborn or yet to be born are not really being produced or producing by the four elements. So it is just conceptually you can see the cause and effect. Conceptually you can see this origination of the color, smell as the four elements. So the space too is the mere name, and the space is just the identity of the space is due to the obstructive phenomena. Without obstructive phenomena, there is no space to identify, because the space is known as the absence of obstructive nature. So the absence of obstructive nature is free from obstructive phenomena, free from obstructive kind of form. So without the obstructive natures, there is no there is no space by itself that exists by itself. Space too is mere names. How can there be a matter with no elements? And then the color, smell, taste, tactilities, the matters without elements or different from the elements is impossible, untenable. Therefore, mere name too do not exist. So this is like mere names. Sometimes when we negate objectivity, then you say a mere name. And if you kind of translate that to you, it exists in the name or with the name. So that is also that's misinterpretation, right? Mere name means verbally, conceptually, right? Due to the conceptual or power of the conceptual, which kind of seems to be existing. It's not saying it exists in the name or with the name, right? So feeling, discriminations, mental formations, and consciousness, contemplate these just like the elements or the self. So then, feeling, contact, discrimination, awareness are all exist. Formations, all exist relatively. Relatively, there is the four elements, the wind, fire, water, and earth are the cause, and color, smell, taste, tactility are the effect of the result. So relatively, one is cause and one is effect. Right? So relatively means the color, smell, taste is existing of the color, smell, taste, tactilities are without four elements. There is no color to be existing. Without the four elements, there's no taste to be existence. And so the color and is manifest due to the elements. So in a similar, the feeling, discrimination, the mental formations, the consciousness, contemplate these just like elements of the self. So there is no feeling that is independent from the contact and discrimination awareness. There is no discrimination awareness which is existing by itself, kind of different from and the feeling and the mental formations. So if, hypothetically, if the anger and attachments, they do exist, independent from each other, right? So when the attachments, so when the attachment is actively engaging, and then anger has to be aside, and the part of your mind, the anger is just waiting there. So when the anger manifests, attachment kind of lie down, has to bow down or kneel down, say he's more powerful. So it's not like the mind is the mind. It's the mind that is kind of focusing on the unfavorable that is objectively existing, right? So then the mind is getting angry, right? So when the mind is projecting the favorable objectivity of the favorable things, is the mind attracted to that? So that is the attachment. So the anger and attachment is not like like the tree that has two two sides of the fruit. Guava tree, there's many different fruits, right? So the consciousness is not, this, So then if they are not really kind of independent or they are not different, then why we count, we say, anger, attachment, or like, 6 root afflictive emotions, 20 secondary afflictive emotions, and then mental formations and perceptions, the 5 or 6 perceptions, right? So then this is just the mind. When the mind contact with eye sense power and the color and the eye consciousness. Mind that contact with the nose sense power and the smell and nose consciousness, right? So consciousness, they do they don't really exist as a different or independent. So apart from the being designated by the conventions, how could there be a world in the reality? World in the reality as either existing or non-existing. So apart from the designated by the conventions, apart from the conceptually designations, what is that thing that exists and what is that things is not exist? Existing, non-existing is, how's that? Without the designations, there is no existing, no non-existence. So without the designation of the minute, there is no minute, right, to objectively exist, or there is no minute that is non-existing. So minute is exist with the designation. If one understands this well, one will soundly comprehend how phenomena are necessarily presented through the dependence, right? How, by the very virtue of their being dependently designated and having arisen through the dependence, so they have no existing in their own right. So nothing really exists by their own essence. So because things exist through the conceptualizations, through the power of the mind, through the power of the thought. So how they do not possess an independent nature, how they do not possess an independent nature, something not possessed through the power of some other conventions. Through the power of some other conventions. No matter the phenomena, when it is presented as existent, existent, right? It is done so without analyze. So without seeking a true reference behind the designations. So, and that's ordinary kind of, way of perceiving things, ordinary way of conceiving things. So we conceive or engage on those designated phenomena without, right, without seeking independent nature, without superimposing on the object. Yeah. So, which means, so conventional, ordinary perceptions, ordinary way of engaging with the object is, so they are not saying, right? They are not thinking or apprehending or kind of asserting the I am independent, right? So I exist with my body, I exist with my feeling or thought like that. So they do not assert that I am independent from my feeling, my thinking, my body. And they also don't seek for the I that exists beyond the conceptions. So that's the conventions. Conventions mean just as you project it, and you're just simply perceiving them, all right, and you're engaging on them as you project it, without seeking true reference behind the designations. So the grasping at the true existence, the contrary apprehensions, the grasping at things as existing as described above, not presented by the power of conventions such as name alone, constitutes innate grasping at things as true, ultimate, absolute existence by the virtue of essential nature, existing through the intrinsic characteristics or intrinsic existence. And the object grasped at by such a mind is, hypothetically speaking, the measure of the true existence. So the hypothetically hypothetically assuming so things do exist truly and ultimately absolute and existing by virtue of the essential nature. So these are whole the idea, the opinions, as the hypothetically projected or superimposed. Right? So, which means that, and then when we examine, so what we are negating is we're not negating or annihilating any conventional reality. So simply negate or refute those hypothetical projections. So what are the hypothetical superimposed or the so truly existing, ultimately existing, absolute existing, existing by virtue of the essential nature, and so the existing through the intrinsic characteristics, intrinsic existence, and the object of So these are the hypothetical speaking, the measure of the true existence. So it is the case here as well that one need to be cognizant, one need to be cognizant of there being true sense of the term, the ultimate. So you may, it is the case here as well that one need to be cognizant of there being true sense of term ultimate. So you have to be aware, or when we talk about ultimate existence, there's a two terms. The ultimate, when qualifying the object of negations with provisos, ultimately, although the proponents of the Svatantrika Madhyamikas maintains the existing in terms of the first three, the true existing and so on, to be impossible. The Svatantrika middle way thinks that truly existing is not possible, ultimately existing is not possible, absolute existing is not possible. So, in terms of the first three, so these three, they negate it. And then rest, they accept, right? The Svatantrika, middle way. So they nonetheless accept on the conventional level, remaining other threes existing by virtue of essential nature and so on. So by virtue of essential nature existing through the intrinsic characteristic, intrinsic existence. So they accept, these are conventionally acceptable. So personally, I see this Savatantrika standpoint to be an example of the great skillful means to help guide those who are, for the time being, not capable of easily realizing the extremely settled view of suchness. So, Lama Tsongkapha says, there's still this Savatantrika middle ways, kind of, and to help the people to understand Savatantrika middle way point of view is still skillful means, because some they don't really for some people it is impossible to understand the Prasangika school, the point of views. So if something is impossible for them, you have to kind of guide them something that what they can understand. So it's still a skillful means. That's the, how's that? I forgot this meaning. That's the purported reality of the phenomena. So purported reality of the phenomena, not dependence upon some other factors, namely the convention making conceptualizing the subject, and intrinsic natures supposedly not presented through the such conceptualizations is what is called self-existence. And this is the object of negations. And the absence of this is the relation to a person has been stated to be a selflessness of persons, while its absence upon phenomena such as I and so on has been stated to be a selflessness of phenomena. So purported reality of phenomena means the kind of the intrinsic nature supposedly not persist through the conceptualizations. It's called self-existence. So purported means it's a conventional, right?
Alleged, yes.
Right. The conventional reality of the phenomena, not dependence upon some other factors, something so any kind of conventional reality that exists by itself, or the existence not due to the conceptualizations. So in the Prasangic school, that still count as a truly existence, right? So the absence of that, things do not exist by themselves, or things do not exist by their own essence, not truly exist, is this Prasangic school, they are the same, right? So the absence of the intrinsic nature, intrinsic existing of the person is the selflessness of the person, and absence of intrinsic nature or intrinsic existing of table, house, right? These are the selflessness of the phenomena. So in the Prasangic school, two kind of selflessness of person, selflessness of the phenomena. There is no kind of they are equally settled, equally the final, the kind of the how to say the ultimate. So objectively, they are same, or this. There is no kind of one is selfless, and the person is kind of less subtlety, or selfless of phenomena is more subtleties. Equal. They are simply negating the intrinsic nature. Right? So, in absence of intrinsic nature, with person is selflessness of person. Absence of intrinsic nature on a phenomena, like other than the self, eye, nose, tongue, color, smell, taste, tactilities. These are known as the selflessness of the phenomena. So, which means the other school of thought, and they think the selflessness of the person is compared to the selflessness of the phenomena, the selfless person is less settled. And the selflessness of the phenomena is more more profound than the selflessness of the persons. So that's why they think that practitioners, at the first, they revealed selflessness of the person, not the selflessness of the phenomena.
It's the same for all the others.
Yeah, the Madhyamika Savatantrika and the mind-only school and the Sautantrika school. Sautantrika school maybe not much talking about selfless phenomena. Right? So the Prasangic school says there is no order. Right? So understanding the kind of revealing the selflessness of persons is due to perfect understanding of the absence of intrinsic nature in the phenomena.
Does it mean, when you say you know one phenomena, you know all the other phenomena? So that applies to Prasangika, but it does not really apply to others.
But they use that kind of, yeah, but they use that, but it's not really kind of, applicable, maybe, right? Because this sutra, this Bodhisattva himself in the sutra, this says, by seeing one, seeing all, by knowing one, knowing everything. So the Prasangic school is the perfectly fits there, because there is not like the emptiness of the phenomena is like emptiness of the phenomena and emptiness of the person is not like opening the two door. So one door you open, you see things, and you go to the other door, you see different. It's not like that. So emptiness, when you empty the intrinsic nature, so it's the ultimate space is what you see, right? There is no there is no different experience or different understanding or revealing the absence or intrinsic nature of the phenomena, absent intrinsic nature of the self. So one, you reveals the absence of intrinsic nature, and that so reveals all the phenomena in the absence of intrinsic nature. But still, there's a lot of arguments in the Prasangika school. So, the emptying the intrinsic nature of the one phenomena, you are emptying the intrinsic nature of all phenomena. So then the question comes, in that case, so the Hinayana noble beings, and the Hinayana noble beings, because they have the realization emptiness. So does that mean those Hinayana practitioners, noble beings, they reveals the absence of intrinsic nature of all phenomena? Do they meditate on the absence of intrinsic nature of all phenomena? So if yes, and do they have the quality, and do they have this equal quality in the wisdom to purify all the negativities, right? So if the quality is the same, the Mahayana realization emptiness and the Hinayana realization emptiness is the same quality, same power, same remedy, same antidote for all the afflicted emotions and even the stain of the afflicted emotions. So why not Arhat become the Buddha, right? So, and sometime Mahayana says this, the wisdom is like a knife, very sharp knife. So if the sharp knife, in order to cut something, cut deeper, you need shoulder, the strong shoulder, right? So the Mahayana is because of the powerful shoulder and is strengthening by the compassion of the Bodhisattva, so they can cut more. So the sharpness of the wisdom is the same. So it's how much you can deepening the phenomena. So yeah, that's kind of some people can raise the knife, very sharp knife, because then their arm is too weak, it may fall your head. So that's what they call nihilism. So wisdom cut yourself, not cutting others. Yeah, the purported reality of the phenomenon is not dependent upon some other factors, namely the convention making conceptualizing our subject. And intrinsic natures supposedly not presented through the conceptualization is what is called the self-existence. So which means, again, things do exist by their own essence as the self-existence. This is the object of negations, and the absence of this in relation to a person has been stated to be a selflessness of person, while its absence upon a phenomena, such as the eye and so on, has been stated to be a selflessness of phenomena. From this, we can implicitly understand that grasping at such an intrinsic nature on the basis of the person and on the basis of phenomena are two forms of self-grasping. So this is as declared in commentary on the 400 stanzas. Here, what is referred to as a self is that intrinsic nature, namely the nature of the things conceived of as not dependent upon others. And the absence of this is the selflessness. Because of the two folds of the distinction of the person and phenomena, this selflessness is understood in terms of the two kinds, the selflessness of phenomena and the selflessness of person. So they are equally in the profound and subtle. And then some others, yes, medieval Savatantrika is a selfless. The person is grosser than the selfless phenomena. Selfless phenomena is more subtle than selflessness of the person. Here too, in the following, Chandrakirti explained that two forms of the selflessness are distinguished not from the viewpoint of what is to be negated, but from the viewpoint of their basis. So Buddha taught on no self in the twofold terms, that of the phenomena, that of the persons. With regard to the innate identity view of the grasping at self-existence, since the root text, entering the middle way, rejects the aggregates as its object of focus. Furthermore, in the commentary, the self that is dependently designated is said to be its object of focus. So we should take the mere I or the mere person that is the focal object, of giving rise to the thought of I am, and to be object of identity view. As for its aspect, the commentary says, the thought I am imputed self that does not exist, conceives such self to exist, manifestly clinging to it as reality. So I think here it's trying to say that because the self is a designated phenomena, designated dependence upon the five aggregates. So the question is, which means the self is existing by depending on the five aggregates. So the grasping of the self, it is conceiving or focusing on the five aggregates or something else, other I, which is other than that. So that the grasping of self, the person, means the person is the focal object. So it is the person is the main object. Main object, the person is the object, and that person as the object, and it superimpose that intrinsically existing. So which means the grasping self person is not focusing on the body, not focusing on the feeling, not focusing on the discrimination awareness and the perceptions. So these five aggregates are not the object of the grasping self person.
So it's just like the conceptual I.
Yeah, so just mere I is the main object to superimpose. So dependent is said to be the thought I am imputed self does not exist. I am imputed self does not exist. Conceive such self to exist, manifestly clinging to it as real.
So that would be the independent I or the Atman, or more subtle than that.
Yeah, this imputed I as the I that exists by their own essence is the kind of, that's the kind of, superimposed by the grasping itself. So what is the main object that is, conceived and grasping by the grasping itself person? The grasping itself person is clinging on the self that exists in and of itself, that I that exists truly, the I that exists by its own essence. So here, so the grasping of self, the person is the grasping on the attributes of the I. So with I, and then characterizing this exists in and of itself. This exists by its own essence. So exists by itself. So that's, so here what they kind of, what they're trying to kind of, correcting is the grasping of self person is not focusing on the body or feeling or the perceptions. Just mere I is the object, and then characterizing that is existing in and of itself, existing by its own essence. So that is the grasping of self persons. So as stated here, the identity view of the grasping the I as a truly existing. Furthermore, the commentary states the identity view is afflicted intelligence that operates by way of I and mind. The afflictive intelligence. So it's kind of, so why it's giving a name of intelligence is because it has the quality of discriminating. Right? So me and I and mine. Right? So the grasping itself, a person is, has the function of the discriminating, and it is superimposing an object as a wrong perception. So that's why it's afflicted intelligence that operate by way of I and mind. So the grasping of self as two, the grasping of self as an I, or grasping of self as a mind. So both are the grasping of self person, I or mind. So when you're grasping the grasping of self, the person as I. So I am, that I that exists in and of itself. And still that grasping of self person is not conceiving or perceiving any five aggregates. Even the mind, the grasping of self or mind, that mind is just kind of, again, that which the grasping of mind is not necessarily the conceiving or the apprehending any other kind of things that belongs to me, or the eye or nose or tongue. It's not right. So because the grasping of self, a person has divided into two, grasping it as the I and the mind. So both are grasping of self person. So therefore, the described here, therefore, something to be focal object of the innate identity view, it must spontaneously give rise to the thought, I am. Thus, although the innate grasping at persons with separate continue as existing through their own intrinsic characteristics, does not constitute grasping at self-existing of the person. So grasping of self, the grasping of self or person, which means it has to be kind of, there's a thought of me and mine, and the seeing this me and mine as intrinsic nature is the grasping of self persons. So now here they're saying this grasping of self person is the root of the 12 links of dependent originations. Right? Your 12 links of dependent originations rooted into the grasping of self or mind. So which means this grasping of self person is innate. It is not artificial. It is more like innate, the grasping, right? So you have the kind of the habituations within the kind of something that embedded within the mind for thousands kind of lives. So the artificials means now you study and you listen, you contemplate, you try to kind of try to think intelligently, and then out of that your idea, oh, the Atmas, this is independent. So these are superficial, more artificially kind of misconceiving of the self person. So the natural, more innately the grasping self persons. So we have pretty much kind of a normal way of seeing me and my still intrinsic nature, independent objectivities. Right? So now here's the separate continuum is now. So it's for do you think that the considering the truly existing of other person, others I and others mine, right? So do you consider this is the grasping of self person? If yes, is this the root of your 12 links of dependent originations? So the Prasangika school says that is not really considered as a grasping of self person. So the conceiving others I and mine as the truly existing is not here considered as the grasping of self person. The grasping of self person is your own me and mine as the truly existing is the kind of grasping of self person. Yeah, this was kind of many times you can see this in Lama Tsongkapha, Lama Tsongkapha books. But I still don't know why it is the problem. So seeing other person is truly existing is not, why not grasping self person? So separate continuous is existing through their own intrinsic characteristics that constitute grasping the self, grasping at the self-existing person. It is not the innate identity view. Yeah, for me, I thought many times, long time, so still don't understand this. So when you see yourself as independent, that is more kind of, innate kind of identifying yourself, innately identifying yourself. So which means naturally being wrong in viewing yourself, right? So then why not just looking at others? Why not there is naturally kind of being wrongly perceiving on others is independently exist. So yeah, that's the identity views. The priest operated by way of I and mind does not indicate that mere I and mere mind are the held object of the apprehensions of this innate identity view. What is indicated is that such an innate identity view possesses the kind of aspect of the apprehending these two, I and mind, as existing through their own intrinsic characteristic. And furthermore, it is mind itself, it is the mind itself that is the focal object of innate identity view, the grasping at mind. We should not understood that the I and so on to be its focal object. That's yeah, that makes sense because I and mind is the focal object for the grasping self person. Not your eye, not your nose is the focal object of the grasping self person. So which means the, my nose, my hand, my head are not illustration of me, right? So existing through the intrinsic characteristic on the basis of taking mind, it is it as its focus. Questions in this: if this is so, how it is that that in the commentary, in the part pertaining to the line, then with the thought mind, Chandrakirti writes, thinking this is mine, thinking this is mine. They manifestly cling to all the things to that are other than object of grasping at I. So by looking at the hand and the grasping itself is the kind of grasping itself and kind of the focusing on me, right, is the possessor of the hand. So the possessor, the I that is as a mind that it created, and the grasping itself is focusing directly focusing on the eye, not the hand. Right? Manifestly cling to the object of grasping the eye, and thus state that clinging to this is mine on the basis of the focusing on the basis such as the eye is the form of grasping at mind. So the meaning here is this. On this basis of having perceived the I and so on as mind, we tend to manifestly cling to truly existing mind. It is not the case, however, that I and so on, I sense power, so on, which are instants of mind. So are themselves the object of focus. For this would bring the consequences that being an instance of the identity view and the grasping at the self-existing of the phenomena would not be mutually exclusive. So the grasping self and the grasping self person, grasping self phenomena is mutually exclusive because their object is different. Right? Grasping self person is focusing on the I and mind, not the phenomena. The grasping self phenomena is not focusing on I and mind, but rather like I, like the table, my legs, my head. Right? So
usually, when we say mutually exclusive, means without one, the other cannot. When we posit one, the other cannot exist.
mutually exclusive means the grasping of self of the person and the grasping of self of phenomena. Mutually exclusive means if this is a grasping of self person, this cannot be grasping of self phenomena. If something is grasping of self phenomena, it should not be, must not be grasping of self persons. So now that the making a distinctions because their object is different, right? Because focus objects are different. So grasping self person is the main focus to the I and mind. The grasping self phenomena is a focusing and other than the I and mind, things that are other than the I and mind. So for this it brings consequences that as for the focal object of innate grasping at self existing phenomena, this includes the grasping at the aggregates of form and so on, at the eye, ears, and so on of the both self and others, as well as at the external environment. So that is not the part of our innate world. As for the aspect apprehended by the grasping of self-existing of phenomena, it is the same as explained above. In the context of the grasping of self-existing of persons, now it is this form of grasping at self-existing of person and the phenomena that constitute the ignorance binding us to the second existing. So I think that's out of ignorance there's the karma, and from the karma the consciousness to the naming form to the contact and feeling and craving, grasping, and the process of becoming, and the birth and aging and deaths. So the all kind the root of that is the grasping of self, a person, and the grasping of self, phenomena. So that's why the 70 stanzas on the emptiness says, things arisen from the cosmic conditions that which conceives these to be real. The Buddha taught to be ignorance. From this emerge dwellings. So there's more. I think there are a lot of questions. Right? So we say the grasping at me and mind. So me and mind that is designated depending on my own 5 aggregates. Right? From my own 5 aggregates designated as me and mind, and then grasping of that I and mind as a truly existing is the root of the second existence of myself, or it is the root of my own dwellings and dependent originations. The question is the grasping of truly existing of other persons. Why not? That is the root of the dwellings and dependent originations. Him grasping his own I as a truly existing is not my origin of karma and actions in the naming form, but me grasping as him existing truly, can drives me to create negative karma, and that leaves the consciousness naming form. Maybe there's some kind of, sometimes the language Yeah, so here there's maybe I think there's a different way of reading it. So in this line it says, therefore the described here, for something to be focal object of the innate identity view, it must spontaneously give rise to the thought of I am. Thus, although the innate grasping at the persons with separate continua as existing through their own intrinsic characteristic does not constitute the grasping self existing of the persons. So if you are saying this if this line is saying him grasping on his own I as truly existing is not my root of the dwellings and divine origination, then I would say yes, that's true, right? So him being wrong is not it won't fall on me, right? So if I can be wrong perceiving or his existing, so that is my fault. So this can be caused,
So that's when I see another person existing, truly existent, is that grasping at person, or is that grasping at phenomena?
the person.
Person. I just thought maybe grasping at your own identity would be self.
If someone says, yeah, grasping on other person, other self of the other person as a truly existing is not the grasping of self person because you are not grasping at I and mine. So every I and mine, right? So this is kind of, so he's the other person is the persons, right? And the person being existing, truly existing, other person being truly existing, myself being truly existing is the same thing. So why not, if yourself being truly existing at the root of your own dwelling and originations, why not your misconception that conceiving the other person as truly existing is still your own misconception. So each of the misconceptions has the power to, lead all these negative emotions. So I think there's the separate continua, the grasping at the person with separate continua. So we still, it's not really kind of, there's some kind of debatable. What you mean by the grasping of the person with separate continua? Means it's a separate continuum. Are you kind of referring that his misconception, the grasping, truly existing of himself, that is not the grasping of self of me? Or, right? So him being truly existing of my misconceptions, right, is not the grasping of self person. So for sure, the grasping of self person is focusing on I and mine. So that very focused object, I and mine, is kind of that I has to be my own I, or I can be others' I. Right. So this is a lot of big debate. And sometimes person and I are synonymous. So if the person and I is synonymous, why other person not I? So, then I have to say, his father is I. So then, because his father is person, so I have to be that.
Is the Tibetan language also refers to as a person and I?
Yeah, this is the person, I, self, and what's that? In Hindi, there's a lot of names of the different names on I, person, and Purush. So, so one time I so in the debate I provoked the ultimate just kind of making a joke, and the elder monk, he got very very angry. So your father is I am your father because your brother is a person, therefore it has to be I. So I become your father. Okay, things arising the cause, the condition which conceive this to be real, the Buddha taught to be ignorance. From this emerge the dwellings. Thus taking the things and phenomena as one's object and grasping at them as existing with final reality, said to be the ignorance that is the root of the second existence. And since such grasping at the self-existing of phenomena brings ignorance, grasping at the self-existing of person, it is taught that dwellings of the dependent originations come into being from such grasping. For this ignorance to cease, one must see how nothing exists in the way such ignorance apprehend. So we have to kind of, proving the misconception to be, wrong perceptions, proving the object that apprehended by misconceptions is not exist at all. And how the self-existing is conceived has no bearing on the reality. 70 stanzas in the emptiness is, but when they realize things are empty, one sees the truth and is confused no more. So ignorance comes to cease. From this, the dwelling ceased. So for auspicious, we just stop here. So yeah. Any questions? No questions? Okay. Chancho semjo rinpoche, ma jeba na geshu je, jeba nyamba mewa ya, kone kondo pewa. Tonye tawa rinpoche, ma jeba na geshu je, jeba nyamba mewa ya, kone kondo pewa. Pama simjen tamjen, dada denju je, ngendo tamje dada tonga. Chancho semba pama suju ve, tada kunje, molom dhubje. Karera ve kuwe shema so, penda dewa ma ne juwe ne. Jeren sewa, tenzin jazo yin shabe, sede kado denju.
May the precious body mind not yet born arising grow. May the bone have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born arising grow. May the bone have no decline, but increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all father and mother sentient beings have all happiness. May all lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are Bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred lands haunted by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, more powerful chanting and judgment. Remain in the sorrow until samsara ends.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, Alice.